My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
And I am so glad to be back. I hope you miss me as much as I missed you, because I really have missed being here every week. But those elections over and all those other things that I had to do are over for right now. So here I am back again. And I have a story I'm going to read, The Ugly Duckling. And you know, I was walking. In where I live, we have a giveaway table. So when you don't want something, you put it on this table. Maybe somebody else wants it and they pick it up. Well, I was walking through the garage and I looked at the giveaway table and there it was, The Ugly Duckling. And I said, I'm going to do that story. See, that's how I figure out what I'm going to do on the show. It just pops into my head, and then I develop it from there. I've tried to sit down and contemplate and do all those long things and be organized and everything, but my head won't do it too well. So I just have to do the pop-up thing. So here this is. I popped up, and I said, this is a very good book to read about this time. It was written by Hans Christian Andersen, who was himself an ugly duckling. And I didn't know that when he was in school, he was teased and made fun of because he had a big nose and he had big feet. But they call it sort of a you know what I'm trying to say. You know, how could I lose that word? I hate that. Don't you hate that when you lose a word? Biographical. Okay. A biographical story. He considered it a biographical story because he became a very prominent author. So when he wrote this story, he thought of that. He wrote this in about 1845, and he was born in 1805 and passed in 1875. So he was about 70 years old. But this is actually a lot of our stories. You know, some of us follow it through, and some of us stop in the middle, and some of us just go a little ways. So I'm going to read you this story. The Ugly Duckling. Oh, and you can just sort of think about where you come in this story. Once upon a time, a duck sat on her nest in a big farmyard. It was almost time for the ducklings to hatch, and Mother Duck was growing tired of sitting on the eggs all day. It was such a slow job. She was eager to get off the nest and join the other farm animals. Finally, the eggs began to shake. The ducklings were hatching. One egg cracked open, followed by another and another. Mother Duck quacked with joy. The newborn ducklings practiced quacking as they looked around the vast farmyard. I hope you're all hatched now, Mother Duck said as she stood beside the nest. But the biggest egg was still lying there, unbroken. Mother Duck sighed and sat back. How much longer is this going to take? She wondered. Just then, an old duck waddled over to visit. He asked Mother Duck how the babies were doing. The ones that have hatched are the loveliest ducklings I have ever seen, she replied. But the big egg still hasn't hatched. The old duck peered at the large speckled egg. Why, that's a turkey egg. There's no duckling in there. I'm sure of it. Leave it alone and go teach your ducklings how to swim. But Mother Duck was sure that the egg would hatch soon, so she sat on it some more, waiting for the last baby to hatch. Finally, the egg began to crack, and out tumbled the biggest duckling Mother Duck had ever seen. But he wasn't just large, he was funny looking. His gray feathers looked dirty next to the bright yellow feathers of the other ducklings. What a great big duckling, Mother Duck exclaimed. He doesn't look like the others. But he can't really be a turkey, can he? I guess I'll find out tomorrow when I take the baby swimming. The next day, Mother Duck and the babies waddled across the farmyard. When they reached the river, the ducklings jumped right in. They tipped over at first, but they were soon upright, and their little legs paddled beneath them. Mother Duck watched proudly from the riverbank. Well, she said to herself, that big gray baby is certainly not a turkey. Look how well he uses his legs. What a strong swimmer. He's my own little one, all right, and he's almost handsome when you take a good look at him. When the ducklings finished swimming, it was time for them to meet the other farm animals. Come now, Mother Duck said to her babies. Don't be scared. Look alive and don't turn your toes in. A well-bred duckling turns its toes out, just like its father and mother. Now, bend your necks and quack hello. As the ducklings quacked hello, the chickens, geese, and other ducks glared at them. There are too many ducks as it is, cried an old goose, and now we have to deal with this new bunch too. That big one is so ugly, he's hurting my eyes. Leave him alone, Mother Duck said as she flapped her wings. He may not be handsome, but he is happy and can swim beautifully. In fact, he's a better swimmer than his brothers and sisters. While the other ducklings explored the farm, the big duckling was jolted and pecked by the other birds. They laughed at his size and teased him for being so funny looking. The poor baby didn't know what to do. He felt like an outsider and was upset at being teased so much. The next day, the duckling was picked on again. The ducks nipped at him, the geese honked angrily, and the chickens pecked his feet. Even his own brothers and sisters made fun of him, and so he went every day. And so it went every day until the gray duckling couldn't take it anymore. He decided to run away. That night, the duckling hurried across the farmyard and hopped over the fence. As he flew across a field, the birds in the bushes tweeted excitedly, "Who is that big gray baby?" The little birds asked each other. "They are afraid of me because I'm so funny looking," the duckling thought. He was growing tired, but decided to keep moving. He finally reached a quiet marsh and settled down to sleep. Okay, we're going to leave that duck right there sleeping overnight, and we're going to take a little break just for a while. When we come back, we're going to continue The Ugly Duckling. I'll be right back.
We all know smoking is harmful, right? But did you know that even after the smoke clears, the danger remains? This is called third-hand smoke. Third-hand smoke is the toxic residue left behind on surfaces like furniture, walls, or even clothes. These harmful chemicals can linger for days, weeks, or even months. Young children and pets are especially vulnerable. They can ingest these toxins simply by touching contaminated surfaces and then putting their hands or toys in their mouth. The best way to protect your loved ones? Make your home and car completely smoke-free. Remember, it's not just about the smoke you see, but the unseen toxins leave behind. Protect your family from third-hand smoke. Choose a smoke-free environment.
Hola, mi nombre es Rosy Alcántara. Estoy muy contenta de haber participado porque es una linda organización y muy aparte los maestros también nos dan mucha enseñanza, nos ayudan a avanzar, a tener más información sobre los niños, sobre las escuelas, es muy importante. Invito a todos a también participar, a seguir los cursos, a seguir avanzando para poder lograr nuestras metas, porque nosotros somos inmigrantes y queremos seguir avanzando y apoyar a nuestros compatriotas. Gracias y que sigan los proyectos y avanzar juntos. Gracias.
Welcome back to Miss Cleo's Storytelling Corner and The Ugly Duckling. When we left the Ugly Duckling, he was sleeping in a marsh. He was so tired. He had just run away, and he didn't know what to do. And there he is lying in the marsh, sound asleep. At sunrise, the gray duckling was woken by loud quacking. There were wild ducks living in the marsh, and they were quite noisy. The duckling swam out to meet them. "What kind of duck are you?" asked the wild ducks as they stared at him. "You really are quite strange looking, but we don't care as long as you don't eat all our food." The ducklings stayed with the wild ducks for several days. They were actually kind, but at least they stopped teasing him. There, he met other birds too. 2 big geese had come to visit the ducks. "Listen," said the biggest goose, "why don't you fly away with us? There is a nice flock of wild geese not far from here. They honk beautifully and can teach you how to talk like us." The duckling thought about the goose's offer. Would the other geese be kind to him? Before he had time to make up his mind, a loud bang, bang filled the air. The two geese fell silently into the water. They had been shot by hunters. The wild ducks quacked loudly as they flew out of the reeds. The hunters had surrounded the marsh, and their hounds were running toward the water. The poor duckling didn't know what to do. The terrified duckling hid his head underneath his wing, but a hound quickly found him. As the duckling trembled with fear, the slobbering dog lowered his huge muzzle and sniffed the duckling. But just as soon as he had appeared, the dog bounced off. "I'm so ugly that the hunters don't even want me," the duckling said as he sighed with relief. He stayed perfectly still until the hunters and their dogs left. That night he was much too nervous to sleep, so he decided to leave the marsh. After a long journey, the duckling came upon a cottage. An old woman and a hen were sitting in the sunny yard. The woman's eyesight wasn't very good, and she thought the big duckling was a plump duck that had strayed from home. She smacked her lips at the thought of eating duck eggs and invited the duckling to live with her. The old woman was kind, and the gray duckling was happy that she didn't tease him, but the hen kept asking when he was going to lay an egg. When he said that he couldn't lay eggs, the hen laughed at him. Then, "What are you good for?" she asked. The duckling felt quite sad. He was restless in the cottage and longed to go swimming. He decided that it was time to go on his way. The next day, the duckling left the cottage. He soon found a big river and dove right in. He swam about happily, looking around his new home. Autumn had arrived, and the leaves were turning red and gold. The sky overhead had a frosty look, and the clouds looked like they were full of snow. The duckling shivered at the very thought of winter. Autumn turned to winter, and the gray duckling shivered every day and every night. But at least the river hadn't fully frozen, so he was able to spend his days swimming. At long last, the snow began to melt, and the grass began to grow. It was springtime. One warm day, a flock of large birds landed on the riverbank. The duckling hid behind some reeds and watched them. They were dazzling white, with long, graceful necks. They were swans. The duckling stared in wonder. Before long, the swans spread their broad wings and flew away. As they flew higher and higher, the duckling felt a funny feeling. He spun around and bobbed his head up and down. He let out a cry that was so shrill and so strange that he startled himself. The swans turned back toward the river. They had heard him. The majestic swans landed on the river, looking around for whoever had cried out to them. The duckling gathered all of his courage and left his hiding spot. When the swans spotted him, they spread their wings and rushed to meet him. The duckling became frightened and hid his head under his wing. But there, on the surface of the water, he saw his own reflection. He was no longer a clumsy, ugly duckling. He was a magnificent swan. He cried out in surprise as the swans swam up to him and stroked him with their beaks. The other swans bowed down to him. They had never seen such a handsome swan. As the other swans praised his beautiful feathers and the graceful curve of his neck, he thought about how he was teased and scorned for so long. But then, if he hadn't experienced so much sadness, he wouldn't appreciate his newfound happiness. He ruffled his feathers, raised his slender neck, and let out a happy cry. The ugly duckling. Okay, what was the story about? Hans Christian Andersen thought he was ugly too, with his big nose and his big feet, but look what he became, a wonderful author. His story was kind of about himself, about the times when he was teased. Can you remember the times you were teased and bullied and discriminated against? Are these words that we never heard of, we haven't experienced? Some of us experience it every single day. And one of the most important things is finding oneself. Wow. Finding a place that you fit. Isn't that wonderful? Finding a place that you fit. I mean, you're looking all around. You don't fit here. You don't fit there. They're teasing you here. They're doing this. And you're feeling worse and worse. And one day, you just find that certain place. Well, that happened to me because I was about 30 years old when that happened. And I was teaching church school. And I was doing the youth group. And I just couldn't think of anything else to do. And, the church didn't really pay that much attention to those things. Put somebody in there, let them do it, and kind of forgot about it. But I wanted it to mean something. So I said, I have to learn something. So someone said, why don't you go to the ACE program, Assistance in Christian Education. So I went to a Christian education course, and I fit just right. My imagination fit, my crazy stories fit, my ideas fit, and there was other people with just as crazy ideas, just like myself. And I learned so much, and I said, I'll never leave this place. Not me, because this is the one place in all my life that I fit. And that's my little story. What's your story? The ugly duckling found himself. And what did the ugly duckling say? He said, if I hadn't had all those experiences, I wouldn't know how happy I am right now. I wouldn't be this happy because I wouldn't know. But all those experiences helped me. All of our experiences help us get to where we need to go. Right? Right. And how about the mother? Yes. She did think her son was, she thought her son was a little ugly. And she thought her son was big and ugly. But did she say, she made excuses for her son because that was her baby. Now, you know how that is, ladies. That was her baby, and she made excuses for him. And she loved the way he swam, And she said, if you look at him, he's almost handsome. Yes, she did. Mother defending her child until the child had to go and find himself. So you'll find a lot of things in The Ugly Duckling. So it's a good book to get your children, read it over and over. I loved this story of The Ugly Duckling when I was a girl. So I'll put that away now, and I have I have a poem for you, and it is a poem of Roger Kipling. If. Wow. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you could dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat these two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up with worn-out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it on one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at the beginning, and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinus to serve your turn long after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to them, hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, or lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distant run, yours is the earth and everything in it, and which more, you'll be a man, my son. Amen. Wow. I came across the poem. I'm looking, and it just popped out at me. And I thought to myself, I'm feeling kind of like giving up at this time of the year and at this moment and the United States, and I'm looking around and I'm saying, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. But in reading the poem, it says keep going. Keep going. Even you, though you think all is lost, hold on. Because so this will change. And you, I like this, yours is the earth and everything in it. Just keep on stepping. Well, those are my stories today. I have no more today, but I am so glad to be back, and I hope that you enjoyed the short time that we were together today. And I hope to be back next week. Give Stan a ring, or how do they do it, Stan? A text or something. Yes. Tell us the stories that you like and the poetry. I have so much poetry. You know, it took me so long to learn poetry. I couldn't stand it at first. I just could not stand it. I said, how do these poets learn all these words? How does it come in their head? It always was confusing to me how poets. I know a poet. I think I brought him on the show years ago, and he spouted poetry like 24/7, and he would say to me, it comes into my head and I write it down, but sometimes I get so tired I have to sleep. But it keeps on coming. So wow, I guess it's just a gift that God gives you, because when I read poetry sometimes I say, what are they saying? And I have to go back, and especially if you like the rhythm of the poem, I said, I like this rhythm. I like these words, but what in the world are they saying? So we're going to do a little more poetry in the future, and of course, a lot more storytelling. So I will see you next week. And remember, read a little, write a little, dream big. And I'll see you next week.